Okay, first let me apologize for the lower resolution that I recorded this in. I'm trying to work around another problem. It takes a 10-minute video. It took almost 30 minutes to upload the very first one I did, and I'm just trying to see if I can deal with that later on. Anyways, this is my observations from playing around in my different plate configurations. I was just experimenting with different combinations. And you notice I took my original plate configuration and I took it down to 5 plates, and I also removed one of the washers, so it was only separated with 2 of those nylon washers per plate rather than 3. I wasn't impressed with that. I mean, it didn't start making the neutral start working. I think what I need to do is I have to do something to this finish to make that work. From what I'm trying to accomplish, this is probably overkill, and it's an awful lot of work to do the way I built it. You know, 4 bolts instead of 2. I mean, I wanted to control. I wanted the plates to be very close together, and I wanted to be able to control that so they wouldn't warp and short out. So I'm not necessarily pleased with that. I probably will double back on that one and go back to it. But for the time being, I moved forward, and I started out with a different kind of a configuration. I was just wanting to explore just putting in some plates in here that have multiple sharp edges. This one started out as a 2-screw. This is actually my first one. The first one I built, and it generated so much gas relative to the plates. Well, plates in this pretty much were the same for the amp rating, so it was generating the same amount of gas. But what I did notice is that all the production was focused mostly along the screws. Well, obviously that's where it's going to be. I added 2 more screws to see how that would do, and the reason why I'm not using this now is because this combination right here and the current solution that I have, it draws more current. It'll draw more current than my battery charger will allow, so I can't really stick with this. I got an idea what I want to do with this. If I get a bigger power supply, I'll probably go forward with that. But for the time being, what I ended up doing is I doubled back to my first screw type. This cap right here came from a Pennzoil oil can, and unfortunately I didn't clean it very well, and it loaded up some of my solution with some deposits, so I had to clean that. This right here, this cap came from one of the green bottle sodas. Yeah, I'll explain which one a little later, but the reason why I picked this one is because it's pretty firm. There's another cap I saw that I like better. It's even more rigid than this one, but I'll go with this one for the time being. Anyways, I just want to let you see what this is like. Let me just turn it on. No guts, no glory, right? Excuse me. I'm plugging them in. It's buzzing. No current to speak of. Not zapping through my fingers. And just tip it in there just a little bit. You see, as soon as I touch it, it starts going. The more surface area I get in the solution, the more it wants to fire up and take off. I'll throw this in there, and you see right away it's going good. Let me unplug it again. Let it stop. I'm hoping that you can see this work better. There, plugging it back in. Now see, on my solution, I've got too much sodium hydroxide added to my solution, I believe. I think what I would like to do as I go with another plate configuration with more of these screws, but reduce the amount of solution. Notice that this tank will warm up pretty quick, and I'm at the most I'm ever really drawing is about 4 amps. One thing about this very last one is that I can leave it on the high settings. Excuse me. I can leave it on the high settings, and it won't trip out my thermal. So I'm actually drawing less current than I was earlier. And it's basically the same solution. I did dump. Oh, when I say dump it out, I mean I did filter it. When I poured it through a coffee filter to get all the solids out of it. Clean the tank, so I have a relatively clean starting point. Yeah, I mean it seems to be doing okay. I wish you could see this. See how it's just coming off the end of those screws. But I believe what I'm really trying to point out is that the same amount of current, well, relatively close to the same amount of current is being used generating all of this hydroxy, hydrogen and oxygen. But I didn't need a real sophisticated plate to do it. So I don't know if I mean, obviously this particular design won't stand up under time. If you left it run like this for years, it would probably somehow or another it'd fail, because the way the connections are to the top of the screws, they're basically pushed against the plastic, and eventually that plastic will warm up and soften, and it'll actually make the connection bad, or make the connection poor. And, all that's for is just for testing and to get an idea of where the direction I'd like to go to next. But I just thought I'd let you know that I hadn't stopped messing with it. I'm just tinkering around, and I think if anything, this particular arrangement will be what I'll use for when I'm trying to do pulse width. When I start working on pulsing, because in that way I have a standard to come from, so I know what brute force does, and that way I can measure if I make any gains or losses on pulse. But this is more or less actually brute force, and I did confirm that's definitely a half-wave rectifier. It's not a full wave bridge. So I'm getting basically I'm only getting 1/2 of the AC cycle. I should put I got one of those kilowatts, and I'm gonna put in line with it, and that way you can see the total usage, which would include the watts lost in the power supply. But I won't worry about that until I can actually start measuring how much gases I'm actually making. I don't really believe I'm making that much. I mean, if anything, I'm probably making. I don't know, if I was to guess, I'd probably be 1/4 of a liter per minute, maybe. It's not particularly impressive. And you can see the stuff coming off, but I do have a problem with the oxygen and hydrogen getting dissolved into the water as opposed to being released off the surface. Now, one thing I noticed with this particular design, which you probably may not see it. Well, I can't see it. Right there in the middle, I drilled a hole in it, and when I actually held these things vertically, all the bubbles the bulk of the hydroxy wanted to go up through the center of the cap, and what the cap did is it concentrated the smaller bubbles, allowed them to merge together into larger bubbles, and once they were larger bubbles, they wanted to release from the solution much faster, or much easier. And what I noticed when I did that is I didn't have near as much clouding. I didn't have near as much clouding of the solution as I do now. So I got mixed opinions. I want to have my pins horizontal, but I also want to be able to condense my. I want to allow the bubbles to. I want the bubbles to opportunity to merge together before they get dissolved in solution. So maybe what I'll need to do is add a. Maybe what I'll do is add a funnel at the top of this thing with a small orifice. Allow the bubbles to get concentrated together and give them a better opportunity to get released.